What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla stock and a couple of other tickers, what the news is saying about Tesla, as we have some big news involving Honda that has adopted Tesla's NACS charging adapter, and also what the data suggests as we're seeing more shorting on Tesla that's going on. But before I break anything down about all of this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon and ends in just about 6 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market and for Tesla. So when it comes to Tesla, we had a relatively weak close for Tesla. It was down 1.19%, a little bit weaker than what I was expecting. In my video from yesterday, I predicted that Tesla would get a very nice pump to about 255, then a rejection, and Tesla would end up slowing down with the market, but close somewhere in the green, maybe just a little bit green. We ended up closing a little bit in the red instead for Tesla. However, my prediction for like SPY, the QQQ, and Aapl were spot on because we saw SPY get this pump up to like 447 as predicted. Then we closed at 445.5, just barely above max pain, which is what I was predicting. And max pain was very evident when you were looking at the options chain on SPY. For Aapl, it did something very similar. We were expecting Aapl to get a very nice pump and a retest of 180 at the very least, possibly higher if it held above that to fill the gap. But we failed to hold 180. We just kind of rejected off of it and still closed green as expected. So not bad from Aapl, as we have a nice inverse head and shoulders on Aapl and also on the QQQ. Same thing on the QQQ, nice pump all the way up to almost 375. We were talking about this zone also yesterday before it came down and still closed in the green as expected. Nvidia was a little bit weaker though than what we were expecting because of some bad news that came out. There was some negative news about the CEO selling $42 million worth of shares and also other pieces of news. That in itself caused Nvidia to sell off a bit, but it's still holding its support quite decently, and there is still a chance of a double bottom forming. So overall, Nvidia is looking very tight, but not too bad. We're going to be watching its support next week. But what's going to be very big to start off the week is going to be Aapl, because Aapl has a big event ahead of us. So I'm going to quickly talk about that and some other pieces of news before I talk about Tesla. For Aapl, I just want to remind you all that Aapl has this huge event coming out on Tuesday. All right, so Tuesday in the morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, Aapl has this big event, and they may be unveiling the new iPhone, and they could also be unveiling some new Apple Watch designs, features, and technologies. This could be very, very cool stuff for them. What tends to happen during events like this is Apple has a tendency of pumping approaching these events, then dumping after the events happen. That's what happens historically. It does not guarantee anything about the future, but it does make it, a real possibility. So if Apple is going to pump approaching the event and the bullish case plays out, this could pump the whole market to some extent, right? The momentum that Apple could bring to the market could shift most stocks out there, and that could cause some upside for Monday. But then after the event, who knows what's going to happen? And that's why you want to be open-minded just to be safe. Now, as a reminder, right? So for Monday, if we do uptrend approaching Apple's event, who knows what's going to happen on Tuesday? We don't know what's going to happen for Tuesday if Apple ends up dumping or not. That's going to affect Tesla and the whole market too. And then for Wednesday, we have a big day. We have CPI coming out. We're expecting a hot CPI year over year once again, as we're starting to see the services prices going up, because services are playing a big role in affecting CPI. The latest ISM manufacturing reports are showing that prices have gone up too. So there are signals suggesting an increase in CPI, and that's what has been affecting the market for this week. However, core is expected to be a little bit lower. I'm not too sure about that. We'll have to wait and see. So this is going to be a very important CPI, especially because of the fact that Saudi Arabia has cut their oil production by 1.3 million barrels per day, and they've extended this cut until about the month of December. So that's very important. Oil prices going up affects many different sectors, from transportation to production to manufacturing, and the list goes on. So that's going to be important. It's going to be very telling. It's coming out on Wednesday. Anyways, for news affecting Tesla and what's going on with the shorting, now let's just talk about Tesla. This news came out yesterday that Honda has now adopted Tesla's new charger, and that's some very, very big news, because more and more companies are continuing to adopt them. Tesla is not just getting other companies to adopt their charger, but on top of that, they're continuing to improve their company by closing more deals with different hotels and such. That is some good news for Tesla. So in 2025, that's when Honda is going to be launching the new EV model in North America, equipped with the new NACS port. That is great news for Tesla. Very, very bullish news. And on top of this, I just want to add that this means for Tesla that more other car companies are going to be coming. They're going to be continuing to adopt Tesla's charger, and then they're going to be using it, which is going to build more revenue for Tesla. On top of this, Tesla is continuing to know that the supercharger network is another business for them. Tesla's many businesses in one, and that's why Tesla has expanded its contracts to different hotels, right? So Hilton, for example, is going to be including tens of thousands of those chargers, right? And they have locations all over the USA and Mexico and Canada. It's going to incentivize more people to have EVs and Teslas in general. So very, very bullish news has been coming out for like Tesla's longer term, and this is great news as well, as more and more companies are continuing to join the Tesla race for their charger. Now, on top of this, when it comes to their inventory levels, things are looking a little bit better for the Model Y. The Model Y sales are starting to go up as we're seeing inventories drop. The same thing happened for the S and also for the X. We're approaching some very, very nice looking, downtrends on them. So I'm really hoping they maintain their normal levels. So far, the Model Y is still a little hot on inventories. So we're going to be waiting and seeing how this looks. But I'm expecting a very big drop in inventories once we approach like Q4. So September tends to be a month when EVs get better amounts of sales. October tends to be a little bit weaker, but then November and December tend to be very, very strong historically. So that's going to be very good for Tesla. Really hoping that this ends up playing out as expected. And this is some good news for them. So let's hope this continues. That's going to look a lot better on their balance sheets and etc. Anyways, when it comes to Tesla's other pieces of news, we still have the same analyst Guggenheim that's saying that they are leaning more bearish on Tesla and should sell. But so far, I mean, that's very nuanced. The price price ratio is very flat. Tesla's maintaining like a decent amount of strength. Got a little bit weaker today, but nothing too horrible. It's still holding up just decently. And compared to SPY and the QQQ, it's still holding up all right. Looking at historical data, Mondays tend to be one of the strongest days of the week. We're up about 53% of the time. And just know that we do have a tendency of being a little bit weaker for the months of September and October, at least historically. But with the Cybertruck coming out very soon, with production increasing, and all these other catalysts, Tesla could be announcing a new gigafactory near the end of the year, and maybe even their new model, the $25,000 EV, could be announced very soon too. I believe it's going to come out over the next few months, at least the announcement. If that's the case too, these could be very bullish things for Tesla to help improve the share price. We tend to be very strong in November, a little bit weaker in December, than very strong in January, historically for Tesla. But overall, I mean, December is like not that bad for Tesla historically. So I think they should be fine. I think we're going to end the year very strong for Tesla, most likely as of right now. But one thing that's very important is that the shorting on Tesla has been starting to respect an uptrend. If you compare the shorting to what we saw back around like the June period, back around like not just June, but also parts of July, also around like the August period, there is actually not as much shorting going on in early August. And now, ever since we started, the month of September, we're starting to see more shorting on Tesla. The bars are starting to get higher and higher. And we just saw about 40 million Tesla shares being shorted just 2 days ago. That is very important because the shorts may be looking for a reason to short Tesla, and they could be on their way to trying to bring the share price down if they find a reason to do so, if there's more negative news. As of right now, we're not getting enough. 118 million was the volume, not too bad whatsoever. And when you look at the price versus short volume, it's still very flat, so not too bad for Tesla. So all this data is suggesting that Tesla's not looking it's not looking great, but it's not looking bad either. So if we hold this trend line, we have this nice uptrend being respected from the previous support. Tesla is going to likely try to push up to 250. And if that breaks and holds, I mean, we have the potential to push all the way up to our resistance back around this 256 area. If we hold above that, then 258 to 260 is another level. But please note that Tesla has a tendency of just being very sideways. It's been very sideways for the last like 2.5 to 3 weeks, going back and forth between 260 and about like 242. Back and forth and back and forth is what it's been doing. So, it's kind of boring to witness, but it is what it is, right? And if we do break below this trend line, so I just gave you guys the bullish case if we break and hold 250. If we break below the trend line of support right here, below like support, for instance, all the way down to like 247. If we break that, there's a chance Tesla's going to retrace all the way back down to like 244 or so, back to this support zone this very, very important demand zone. So it's basically stuck as of right now, and we're going to see which way it breaks. Now, as of right now, okay, I am leaning a little bit more in the direction that Tesla may make an attempt to bounce because Apple has this big event, and there's a good chance Apple's going to try to push the market up because from a technical standpoint, Apple has a potential inverse head and shoulders that is developed on the chart. So right about here, you can see there's this inverse head and shoulders. It's a little hard to see actually. Let me just pull this up on TradingView just to show you more clearly. Apple is looking like there's a change in this market structure. We have a potential inverse head and shoulders that is developed on it. On top of this, this is looking like more buyers have been accumulating shares at very important retracement levels. So if we take our very useful Fibonacci retracement, right? And we just like draw it out like this. You can see it's continuing to get bought up at the key retracements, especially the 0.382 retracement. So not bad for Apple. So it's getting bought up at key retracement zones. We're seeing the algo is turning more bullish on it. It's respecting an uptrend, and we have a change in market structure. If it breaks below this and some bad news comes out, you're going to be watching 176.5, and that's going to drag the market down if it gets that rejection. As of right now, that has not happened, and it's still respecting an uptrend, so the odds do favor Apple trying to continue to push. Now, if it breaks and holds 180, it's going to push up to fill this gap, in my opinion, all the way back up to 182.5, and that's going to push the market up. What seems more probable, in my opinion? Here's my answer. Okay, I know I went over like the bull and bear case on Apple, but here's my answer. With the events coming, there's some hype that could be like coming up. So there's a good chance that sentiment is going to shift and try to push this thing above 180 and push to fill the gap. There's a high probability of that potentially playing out over the next like day and a half, or the next like trading days, what I mean. So, Apple might try to push up. There's a good chance of that potentially happening. It's a little bit more probable, but we need to see no very, very bad news come out. There can't be any bad news involving China or anything like that. As long as that's the case, there's a good chance Apple's going to try to form a bullish wedge, try to break out and push the market up. On SPY, SPY may do something very similar. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders structure developing on it. And then we have, our very important uptrend that's being respected. It's making higher highs and higher lows now. With this developing, we want to see it hold 447. If that's the case, watch for a push up to fill this gap all the way up to 449. There's a high probability of this accumulation playing out and an inverse head and shoulders, and this could lead to some potential upside. So I think it's more probable that we see upside on SPY because of Apple pushing it higher. But just to be safe, we want to see it hold this key support. And we want to see, Apple lead the way up. Now, if it breaks below the trend line, that's going to be like a bearish case. 444 is going to be the major support. That's a historical support for SPY. But I'm not leaning, in the direction of it actually dropping that low. I'm leaning a little bit more towards it trying to push up, thanks to Apple, just temporarily for Monday. Now, will we keep pushing forever on Apple? By the way, guys, we could push up approaching the event, but I don't know what's going to happen after the event. Typically, events lead to sell-offs for Apple historically. So there's a chance we could get a sell-off after like Tuesday, but not a guarantee. And we'll have to wait and see. As of right now, it looks like the market may try to push higher. We have these imbalances and these unfilled gaps, and this could have a very positive effect on Tesla. So once again, going back to Tesla, there's a good chance that Tesla may make an attempt to try to push up higher. As long as it holds these levels, we could try to see it do so. I'm leaning a little bit more in that direction, but it will depend on the news. So watch it try to hold to 250 and potentially break out. I'm leaning more in that direction, but watch it all very carefully. Just a couple of more, like for Nvda, we're at support on Nvda. It hasn't truly turned really bearish just yet, or like super, super bearish, because when you zoom out of the chart on Nvda, we have a tendency of holding 448 to 451-ish around that zone. So this support right here, you could see we bounce off of it. We touch it, we bounce. We touched it, we bounce. We touched it. Now we're trying to hold up. So there's a good chance that Nvidia is going to try to bounce off this support as long as there's no like really bad piece of news. If there's a bad piece of news and we break 448, then we could turn very bearish and start sinking all the way down to 440. As long as that there's no like really bad news, I think the odds favor it bouncing and trying to push up to this resistance, 465 to be retested, and potentially even breaking above this to fill this gap. Maybe Apple could help the market push up. Maybe this is like a double bottom, and I think the odds favor that. I'm leaning more in that direction, but I just want to be open-minded to see if we get that bounce. So watch and see how it reacts to this support. I think the odds favor the demand zone playing out. The QQQ is no different from SPY and also like Apple, in my opinion. We have a potential inverse head and shoulders structure that's kind of slanted. we have this wedge that's developing on it. So we might see it either push up a little bit. It might gap down, like retest this like lower level first on Monday, then start pushing up, maintaining this wedge, getting tighter and tighter and tighter. But just like Aapl and SPY, what's very good about it is we got some very clean orders from the algos right about here at these key retracement zones. So very close to our like zero point 0.5 and 0.618 retracement, looking quite good. Very, very key bounce came on it at the very end of the day. So looking quite good. It may just get very tight. It either like pushes up a little higher, gets kind of tight, but still closes green for Monday. And then for Tuesday, I mean, it depends on Apple's event. We're going to make a big move on the QQQ if we maintain this wedge. I don't know if it's going to break out to the upside or the downside after Apple's big event. So we'll have to wait and see. Apple is going to be very key for the first 2 days. And then the third day of the week is not going to be all as much about Apple, but more about CPI. So be ready for the week. We also have lots of options expiring for Friday. So big stuff are going to be coming out. So make sure you're ready for this and do what you have to do, guys. I thank you all so much for listening. Hopefully this video about Tesla was helpful. I am leaning a little bit more bullish on Tesla as long as we hold 250. It could trade, sideways here and there, but overall, the thing about Tesla, just to remind you all, is that it's kind of stuck between support and resistance, our demand and supply zone. Going back and forth and back and forth, it could continue to do this for an extended period of time. Let's see it hold its support and try to bounce. And until I see you guys again, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a great day, remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow as I'm going to talk about something Elon Musk said. Until then, take care, guys. Enjoy the weekend. Take it easy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.